Hi, my name is Dawn Matiko DeLu, and I am angry. I am sad, and I am scared. I am exhausted to my core, and I know that I'm not alone. I know everyone in this room feels it too. What we are witnessing in this country is not normal. It's not acceptable, and it sure as hell is not American. ICE has become something unrecognizable and dangerous. ICE operates like a secret police force. They act without transparency, without accountability, and too often without consequences. They are not traditional law enforcement, yet they are allowed to intimidate, brutalize, detain, and disappear people. Sometimes American citizens, often immigrants, many who have committed no crimes at all. Families are torn apart, children are separated from their parents, human beings are caged. ICE facilities are overcrowded, sanitation is poor, medical emergencies are ignored. People suffer and people die. From September 2018 through April 2022, internal reports documented 922 allegations of sexual assault involving ICE and Border Patrol agents. This is not a rumor, and it's not exaggeration. That's what the record shows. Since 2025, at least 32 people have died in ICE custody, including 6 just this year. Ask yourself, how did we get here? Our government has shown us something painfully clear. For now, we are on our own. This means the responsibility falls on us, ordinary people, to stand up, to speak out, and protect one another. Am I doing that, making that noise? Okay. I can't reach that. Because what's happening right now, Republicans are licking the boots of the Trump regime, boots that stomp on the Constitution and press down on the necks of innocent people. Due process is ignored, rights are stripped away, fear is used as a weapon. Years ago, here in Kalamazoo, I attended a KKK rally, not to support it, but to protest it. And I saw something I will never forget. The city of Kalamazoo provided them protection. Police stood guard, fencing was erected. Why? Because even hate groups were afforded their constitutional rights. They were allowed free speech. They were allowed to assemble peacefully. So today I'm actually demanding something to our city police, to our township police, to our county police, and to all of our local elected officials. If ICE descends on our community, will we receive the same protection? Can we protest peacefully without fear of violence? Can we exercise our First Amendment rights? Can we film ICE agents performing public duties? Can we count on you to protect the people, not the power? It is vital that we are able to safely record the actions of these agents. They blatantly lied about what happened to Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Without video evidence, without ordinary people being brave enough to press record on their cell phones, we would have been left questioning the truth, or worse, believing the lie. The government's greatest fear is transparency. They fear Americans exercising our First Amendment right to record and share what we see in public spaces. They fear accountability. They fear proof. Because once the truth is seen, it cannot be buried, denied, or erased. There is nothing more threatening to abuse of power than Americans standing up for marginalized communities. Cameras protect the truth. Video protects lives. Silence only protects those who abuse power. Minnesota has shown us what courage looks like. They have reminded us what it means to be American. What is happening right now is not normal, and it must not ever be normalized. White Americans, including myself, have long been shielded by the color of our skin. We have seen millions of white Americans stand up and use our privilege as a tool now, not a shield anymore. It is time to stand beside our black and brown brothers and sisters, because no one understands the fight for dignity and equality better than the communities that have been forced to fight for it for generations. This is the moment, this is the responsibility, this is the line in the sand. The Do Something Committee hopes that tonight your fears will turn into action. We ask that you please give our panel the most respect. Please do not yell out questions. Your questions will be picked up and handed to our moderator. I want to give a special shout out to Sheriff Rick Fuller. He did not hesitate to come here. He was very brave. He understands the situation, and he will explain why it's very tricky for him to be here. Lily Eggers with the ACLU is here. Vice Mayor Drew Duncan is here. And Representative Julie Rogers, I believe, is on her way. Oh, she's here. She's here. They showed up, and that's what matters. So please give them your most respect. Please write your questions on those index that are provided. Each panelist will have 2 minutes to respond so we can hear from as many voices as possible. Also, please consider how you can help and fill out the sign-up sheets you received when you came in. These sheets will be shared with local organizations that are already forming a response to ICE, because action does not end with words. When ICE comes to Kalamazoo, we will be ready. We will respond, and we will stand together. Because if not us, then who? If not now, then when? Thank you. Emily Duguay will be up here to say a few words, and then we will get started.
No, I'm not Emily Duguay. My name is Dan Seitzma. I'm board president of the KNAC, the proud owners of the facility that you're in. Isn't it beautiful? Yeah. And I just want to thank you all for being here. I run Crawl Space Comedy Theater as well, which is a little dog and pony show downstairs that we do comedy every weekend. And many people confuse comedy for not being serious, which is far from the truth. We're dead serious. And the thing that we're most serious about is community. And what I see here tonight is a community that cares, that wants the best for its citizens and for those that live here. So thank you for coming here on behalf of KNAC. Welcome, and thank you for all that you do to make this community great. And thank you to our panelists for helping to clarify this very, very difficult subject. So thank you all.
All right, I think that's my cue. Good evening. My name is Mariah Bryant. I'm really excited to be here with you all this evening to moderate this fine panel. Before we get started, I know everyone's very eager, and I'm a person who loves to be on time, so I'm going to make it quick, but I do have a few procedural things that I'd like to walk you all through. First, Dawn already said, but there should be index cards scattered around. Please fill those out with your questions. Cram as many questions in there as you would like. I am asking for one per person because there's about 250 of us, I think, in this room right now, which is a lot. So to that effect, recognize that not every question is going to get answered this evening, right? I will do my best to read through the questions that are coming in, bundle like questions together into one more comprehensive question and ask our panelists. And if your question doesn't get answered, these folks don't just live in this room, okay? You can find them online, maybe much to their chagrin, and you can reach out to them that way, right? So please do your best to respect that procedure. I will not be acknowledging people from the audience, okay? There are people in this audience this evening for whom this is life or death information, okay? So please do your best to be a respectful neighbor and community member, and do not derive anyone from the ability to get this very important, possibly life-saving information. By staying in this room right now, you are agreeing to those things that I have just outlined. Cool? Very good. Okay. We are starting to get lots of questions already. Why don't we really quick go ahead and do a quick opening statement from each of our panelists. Thank you. Drew, I'll start with you. They have 2 minutes, and I'm going to hold them to that every time. 2 minutes, Drew. Go ahead.
Yeah, so can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm Drew Duncan, Vice Mayor of the City of Kalamazoo. Thank you folks for recently electing me. This has been a great honor and a pleasure. And as you heard me speak on the campaign trail, I speak fluently the language of appreciation. And so to me, this is what it looks like, standing in the gap for our neighbors that need someone right now to do something, to communicate something, to say something, to hold a hand, to pass legislation, something. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be serving the city of Kalamazoo, and I'm ready to take questions and stand in the gap with you.
Beautiful. Right on time. Thanks, Drew. Lily, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Lily Eggers. I'm an organizing strategist with the ACLU of Michigan, based in Grand Rapids, and I cover the Southwest Michigan region. So just want to say thank you so much for having me here, inviting me into this space. For anybody that is unfamiliar, the ACLU is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization dedicated to defending and expanding the civil rights and civil liberties of all people in our state. And whenever I'm at events like these, people often ask, so I give the disclaimer, I'm not an attorney, I'm an organizer, so I can't offer you any individual legal advice, but we'll certainly get into a lot of good information about knowing your rights. We've been advocating on the local and state level for policies that protect the rights of not only immigrants in the state, but all people in Michigan. Our legal team has been working very closely with our friends at the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center, and just need to give them a shout out for all the hard work that they're doing. We work in very close partnership with them and have drafted and sent letters to school districts and law enforcement agencies in the state to provide guidance on immigration enforcement. And we can talk more about that if you're interested, but it's the biggest takeaway is that law enforcement does not have to voluntarily cooperate with ICE, and in fact, it puts our communities at risk when they do so. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lily. Representative Rogers, go ahead.
Thank you. I am the latecomer to the party. My name is Julie Rogers, state representative. You're in the heart of my district. It's House District 41. Most of the city of Kalamazoo, most of Kalamazoo Township, a little slice of Portage and Comstock. My colleague, Representative Matt Longjohn, is also here. Thank you for being here, Matt. And I don't know if I saw Senator McCann in the audience. But I just want to uplift, we'll talk about a whole bunch of things tonight, I'm sure, but I wanted to uplift relationships and how important relationships are in this moment in time. And you all coming out to show solidarity is greatly appreciated, especially for those of our neighbors that can't come tonight because of fear and other things. So please take the information that you are learning tonight and share with a friend. Do not just keep this information to yourselves. Please share it widely. And I also wanted to highlight the relationships that I have formed across the country through going to state conferences. NCSL, National Council of State Lawmakers, hosted a maternal health fellowship that I was a part of. And through that, I was able to meet with a couple of other lawmakers from across the country that had this mustard seed of an idea to have a national press conference last week, standing with Minnesota lawmakers. And so I had the privilege of being a part of that. We uplifted many things on that call. I learned other things from my colleagues in other states. And later tonight, I'll be uplifting some of the things that House and Senate Democrats have introduced legislatively to protect us and to protect your civil rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Good evening, I'm Rick Fuller, your sheriff in Kalamazoo County. And I want to remind everyone that it takes democracy defenders to make sure that we're doing what we're doing and to get out into our community. So thank you very much for being here tonight. I also want to recognize Jeff Getting, your prosecutor's in the crowd here tonight, as well. Yes, Jeff Getting. As well as a past elected, Pat Crowley is over here, Drain Commissioner. I see her. So thank you. So real quick, I just want to mention, so the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office, and these things will come up throughout the night, does not enforce federal immigration law, nor are we part of the current enforcement actions being taken by the federal government. It is important to me and to the staff at the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office that our community has the confidence to come to us when they have the need for our help. Our primary mission is to provide services to all who need them, whether resident or visitor, regardless of immigration status. Everyone in the United States has constitutional rights. Let that sink in. The Sheriff's Office is directed by me, and I have a wonderful team. Together we have developed our plans as to how to work with ICE or how to engage with ICE when they're in our community. You may have heard of a 287G agreement that police agencies can have with the federal government, and I will tell you that the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office does not have a 287G agreement. As a result of that, we do certain things, though, and we do not have deputies going out and working with the agents. But I have to caveat that, too. If a police agency is in town and they're doing some sort of activity, maybe they're engaged in talking to people or they're engaged in any other activity, if they are attacked or if they were injured, just like if the city police or another agency's police agency was, we would be there and we would have to try to sort through the situation. We have to make sure that we can work with people. That said, the Sheriff's Office, again, without that 287G, we do not specifically house for ICE. If somebody's being brought to the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office jail, the only jail in the whole county of Kalamazoo, and ICE wants a hold on this person, they have to go get a judicial warrant, and generally the person is already there on a felony. So we currently have one person in there that has this situation. They are charged with a serious felony, awaiting trial, and there is a hold through a judicial warrant that they have asked us to have on this person. We also make sure that ICE, if we're going to have the hold for them through this warrant, they understand that the law says I have a reasonable amount of time to expect them to be there. In Kalamazoo County, that's 2 hours. They request 48. So when I say that, we make it very clear to them, and we've been very fortunate that they have been able to work with us and make those things happen to keep the, I would say, all the extra activities that people are afraid of to a low situation.
Sheriff, thank you. All right, as you can see, I'm getting a lot of questions, okay? Before I start, and I know where you're going to start, I forgot to mention one thing, which is that because of the quantity of cards we're getting, I'm going to try to pull out first the questions that I think everyone can answer up here, right? So I think that seems reasonable and fair. So if you have specific questions for specific folks, I might get to those, I might not, we'll try. But I'm going to start out with, I think, something that's on everyone's mind, and this is for all four of you. It's unclear to folks in the room, and to many, what legal recourse they have when ICE comes around, right? With or without a warrant. So there's some questions in here about, knowing your rights. What do I do? Who do I call? Do I call local law enforcement? Or are they just going to come and back up ICE? Can I demand a warrant? What if they show up in a school or outside of a school as a teacher? What recourse do I have if it's a child situation? So I think in general, what's the dynamic there? That's a lot of questions baked into one. But is there a universal answer? And I'll let Commissioner Duncan, you want to start?
So I'll try not to take the shine away, because I'm sure we're going to probably repeat ourselves a lot. But in my opinion, the way we respond is to, first you have to take notes. when you're responding. Film federal agents. We know the things that are happening right now because somebody pulled out a phone and showed the rest of the world. And so that's incredibly important, whether these guys are coming into our community and wanting to obey the law or not. We need to make sure that we can document that for when the trials start. More importantly, do not aggravate. I know that this is a heightened emotional state when we see our neighbors getting kidnapped. But agitating and aggravating puts you in danger, and if you're recording, it might be likely we don't get your point of view if they snatch you. Step back and ask. If they can ask you to step back, but they cannot ask you to stop filming. So if you see some of this happening, it is incredibly important that you do not stop filming until the end of the interaction. Ask the targeted person if they have a name or phone number of a contact that you could call on their behalf. Likely, if they get taken, they might not get a call. So if you're the only people there, only person there, you might be the only lifeline to that person having any type of advocacy under this regime. I'll pass.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, great question. We do full Know Your Rights presentations. This is like an hour-long conversation we'll have with folks, so I'll try to be concise. But all of our Know Your Rights information is published on our website. We have a whole Know Your Rights hub, and it walks you through what your rights are in various situations where you're interacting with immigration enforcement or law enforcement. In general, you always have the right to remain silent, and you do need to state that you're invoking that right, but you always have the right to remain silent. If they are coming to your door or when you're in your car, you can ask them to show you the warrant signed by a judge, so that judicial warrant. And you can do that without opening the door. If they come to your home, you can ask them to pass it under the door or hold it up to a window so that you don't have to open the door. If they, that's the only way that they can legally arrest you is with a judicial warrant that is signed by a judge. And so that's kind of the short of it. There's different kind of recommendations depending on if you're at your home or on the street or different things like that at work. The only kind of caveat I will say is Customs and Border Patrol agents, which are different than Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, they do claim additional authority where they, within 100 miles of the border, which includes the entire state of Michigan, they don't need a warrant to enter certain private areas. So that's just a distinction for folks to know, and there's a lot more information on that on our website. But yeah, again, refer to that information. You always have the right to film and document, and that's a great way to keep our community safe.
Lily, let me ask you a follow-up real quick. Sure. Just those certain private locations, would that include one's home?
Yeah, your home is private. But in the case of Customs and Border Patrol, they can enter your yard without a warrant, but they can actually enter your home without that warrant.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave a lot of this to the expert to my left, Sheriff Fuller, but I did want to touch as a healthcare provider myself. I wanted to touch on hospitals and healthcare centers. So there is already federal jurisdiction, a provision called EMTALA, which says that if you are seeking emergency medical treatment, you are entitled to go to the hospital, and hospital workers are supposed to be treating you first and not asking to see your identification or your papers, if you will. I have had conversations with both of our hospital leadership recently in the last few weeks, and I cannot speak for them, but I can tell you that that is their intention, is to make sure that people are getting the medical care that they need. And they have sent out reminders and have been talking to their leadership teams about that. I also wanted to highlight some of the things that we're going to be talking about are knowing your rights, but then I think Vice Mayor Duncan mentioned being safe. And so I just wanted to make that distinction in this chaotic and volatile time, is that we're informing you of a lot of your rights, but then sometimes common sense and not trying to exacerbate the situation, unfortunately, is where we're at in some of these. And I look forward to kind of hearing more guidance about that from Sheriff Fuller. But I think also just a general tip of, if you're in some kind of altercation or you are filming, making sure your hands are available, that are up, and you're not making any quick gestures, or you're not, going into your back pocket as in law enforcement or ICE thinking that you may be reaching for a weapon or something like that. So making sure that you're slow and deliberate, and then if you are asked to do certain things like step back, to follow those instructions as needed within reason. I also think that it is important distinction about the different kinds of warrants. We were on a Zoom with Mark Totten, who hosted one of these last week, and he was talking about making sure that you don't just ask for a warrant, but that you ask for seeing what kind of warrant is. You can even ask the question, is this a judicial warrant? And reacting according to what is offered to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the things that we want people to remember is you have a right to remain silent, something we tell people all the time. I mean it. You have a right to remain silent. And one of the best ways I've heard somebody do this was when they were asked question after question after question by a Border Patrol agent, they just said, I'm not answering your questions. That's difficult for me to have to sit here and tell you that, because as a law enforcement official, I need your cooperation when we are trying to investigate something. I need your cooperation to find out further information. But in these cases, what we're finding is the system is not working for everybody. And I want us to make sure we hold people accountable. And that's me, that's my team, that's any law enforcement. And at the same time, remembering you have rights. So, again, I never thought I would sit here and say, you have a right to remain silent, and in this case, say, meaning, like, you really should remain silent. And so, you also have you need to remain calm. And I think Drew talked about this as well. Remaining calm and being as clear as you can. I'm not answering questions, but if you're given direction, and it is teams that are out there trying to interrupt crowds of protesters, that you are stepping back as they tell you to step back. And these things are for your safety. You have a right to be using your voice. You have a right to film them. You have a right to be in a space that's a public space. But what happens is there are laws that are used against you when you're in the street. There's laws that say you cannot be in the street and protesting, because that's a travel way for traffic. And that's designed for your safety as much as anything else. So keep those things in mind when you're out there. We've had two very large events here in Kalamazoo. She's pointing to her watch. Sorry. Here in Kalamazoo that went really, really well. And again, those were well organized, and there was no opposition there against the crowd. So just remember these things. Sorry.
You're right. I appreciate it. Thank you. We got a couple of questions about this, and I think sort of the elephant in the room is what good is knowing your rights and having the right to stay silent when your rights aren't being recognized and respected. I think we've all seen a lot of footage of people knowing their rights and behaving in a way that is in line with their rights, and that not really making a difference. So there's sort of on paper, this is what I have the right to do. Now I'm asking about what's the recommendation, and some of you touched on this a little bit, but in reality, if we get into a situation here in Kalamazoo County like they're experiencing in Minneapolis, tensions are high, what then can we do to protect ourselves that are, within our rights, certainly, but within reality to keep ourselves safe?
This community means everything to me. Everybody in this community does. And I'm the sheriff for everybody in this county, not just one group or the other. And so your safety, the safety of anybody involved in these events, is very important. And so I ask, it's, as much as I'd like to say it's common sense and you stay out of their way and you do these things right, but we're seeing and hearing where people did exactly like I'm telling you right now. And then the envelope was pushed, and it wasn't the protesters that were pushing the envelope. And those are the difficult things that we're seeing on TV. Those are the difficult things that are being talked about in the news, not all news. And these are the things that we have to recognize are today's reality. And so I want you guys to be safe. I want you to be able to use your voice or your whistle or whatever it is you're demanding and what you're saying. And I want you to be able to film these events so there's a record of these events so they can't be erased. But at the same time, I want you to be safe. And I can only ask you to do the best you can to be as safe as you can. And hope that we are working with a crowd of individuals who are aware of your rights. And if they're not, we will have officers in these areas, if nothing else, filming the situation, but intervening when we can, as best as we can.
This is really hard for me to admit, and Mariah knows me really well, but this question breaks my heart because I don't have an answer. And the fact that I don't have an answer to keep you safe is terrifying. So I'm just being honest with you, but we can, as the question was, we can do all these things, and look what's already unfolded in this country, which is why I think you are all here turning out. So I don't say that to be to have fear, but these are unprecedented times, and I think we all have to kind of watch out for each other and do the best we can. But I am sad to say I don't have an answer. I also am sad to say that I've had my own personal safety threatened in my role as a lawmaker for you all, and it is not what I signed up for. I was quite shocked starting my first term January 2021, right after January 6th. We had our own threats at the state capitol. And Sheriff Fuller has been a great partner in helping and answering questions when we have them for our personal lawmaker safety. But I am encouraged by you all turning out. I was encouraged with the lawmakers turning out, 27 states turned out for that National Press Conference to stand in solidarity. We will keep trying. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Look, at the ACLU, we are big proponents of knowing your rights, but we're not naive to the fact that people's rights are violated every single day, and that's a big part of the reason we do the work that we do and have, the work we have. So, kind of as the sheriff said, that you could follow the law 100%, do everything right, and your rights could still be violated. There's no magic word to prevent that from happening. And so in addition to knowing your rights, it's important to make a plan in case you or your loved one are arrested or detained by immigration, particularly for folks that are the most at risk, but also it's a good conversation for anyone to have. So we have resources for you to do this. Again, with our friends at the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center, have put together a guide for preparing your family. It's available in multiple languages. I have put some resources in the back. There's QR codes to our Know Your Rights material and the website for Michigan Immigrant Rights Center. It's right on their homepage. But essentially, you want to have all your documents in one place, provide copies of those to trusted people in case of an emergency, have plans of what's going to happen to your family members, maybe your children, folks that rely on you if you were to be arrested or detained. And also, since 2022, we at the ACLU have had an immigrant police misconduct hotline that's available for anyone in this state. Again, it's available in multiple languages. And so it's important that if you are in those situations, to remember as much detail as you can. Hopefully somebody's recording it, but if not, for you to remember what happened, what did the officer say or the agent say, what were they wearing, anything that you can recall, like location, date, how many officers were involved, and call the ACLU. We have the hotline. We also have our intake form as well. So please take advantage of those resources and share them widely.
Simple question, simple answer. You do something. You follow the law, you stay safe, but you do something. If that's documenting, if that's creating mutual aid circles in your neighborhood, if you know you have undocumented folks in your neighborhoods so that they don't have to leave their homes, making sure that if you notice someone that lives in your neighborhood that may be undocumented or appear to be undocumented, that's the important thing to understand here. Even people like me are being stopped on the street right now. If you are not white, you're being stopped and maybe deported. So understanding your surroundings and being radical about community building in the places that you live. A lot of the videos that all of us have seen where ICE has been stopped has been because community has gotten involved and driven them out of the neighborhoods. And so it's going to be important that we band together in numbers. It's important, if they do come here, that we find out where they're sleeping and we don't let them sleep. It's It's important that if they're renting cars, and they will, find out where. Circle that place. Jam up the reservations. Park in their parking lot. Fill it up. You must obstruct every act that we do. Filing paperwork late. Walking slow in front of their cars. Following them. I hope today all of you have your whistles. Having a whistle and being known. It's time for you guys to get on some Duolingo and learn some simple Spanish phrases so we can tell our friends things like, don't open your door, remain silent, don't sign anything, and speak and ask for a lawyer. Those are things that we've got to learn how to say in Spanish and other languages so that we can protect our neighbors. But most of all, I'm going to take my hat off as your vice mayor. I was an organizer before you elected me here. I expect you to drive out the foreign invaders that are here to kidnap our neighbors. I know I will.
All right. So, moving on to our next question. Kind of combining two questions, which is actually 40 questions. So, people want to know, how are we going to know when ICE is here, if and when ICE is here? And who is the reliable source of information for that? You know, if there's conflicts of interest between local law enforcement, federal enforcement, you know, whatever. And then second to that is what's being done locally, statewide, maybe even federally, to address how ICE conducts themselves when they're here. I know there's some Senate bills floating around, maybe a couple of resolutions, and I also know that in Washtenaw County, they recently passed a resolution. I don't know exactly what was in the details of it, but maybe you all can speak to some of that. So let's look when we know they're here, and then locally and statewide, what are we doing about it?
All right. So only one thing I would say is don't stand in front of their cars. Okay. So we've been very fortunate in this community. In 2017, when a lot of these things were changing in our world, and I didn't like them as a sheriff, I was like, wait, we can't do this to our communities. We came up with our written directives, but we had a relationship with the ICE officials on the west side of the state of Michigan, just to stay close. And so I could call and ask, is this you that's there? Because I'm getting calls. And we still have that ability. The west side director and I spent an hour together, I think it was yesterday, on the phone back and forth, because there was a report of action in our community that turned out to be either erroneous or very stale, because ICE they've told me every single time when I call and say, is this you? And what's going on, and they've said, yes, it's us, or no, that's not us. They also reminded me that Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, all these different agencies all have their own operating procedures that we don't, meaning ICE, doesn't have anything to do with. So it could be another one of those organizations, which is difficult. So again, the bottom line is, the question is, you can call me, and we have people calling me on a regular basis saying, is this them? We also have sent police cars to the area to see, is this related? I've had police agencies call me and say, hey, Rick, we see two guys, we checked them, they are ICE, in case you get a call. And I trust that from those police agencies because they stopped and talked to the officials at the traffic stop, it turned out. And so those are one way that we're able to keep people connected as to what's going on. I can't imagine that's always going to work. I would love to, and I trust right now that we're getting the correct information. But I don't know if it turns into anything like we see in Minnesota, that we'd still have that connection. And my time is up.
It makes it easy on me that you all can hear it. I don't have to be the bad guy.
I will just highlight, look at credible sources. I have seen a variety of things floating around social media. Just because it's a black sedan in the community does not necessarily mean that ICE agents are here. So I phone a friend often to check, and you can always reach out to my office and we can do that on your behalf. I do want to highlight some of the bills that have been introduced by both House Democrats and Senate Democrats in Michigan. House Bill 5495, introduced by my colleague Representative Ryan Gins, codifies the Fourth Amendment. So it protects individuals from unreasonable search and seizure by the government and establishes clear requirements for issuing warrants. And you heard us talk earlier about the differences between judicial versus administrative warrants. And it says also that law enforcement may not stop, detain, or arrest an individual solely based on the individual's personal characteristics like race, ethnicity, or skin color. And again, unfortunately, we should not be having to do these things. There's a little important book called the U.S. Constitution. And so we are unfortunately at a point where we are starting to introduce these into Michigan state law in case those federal guidelines still get trampled on. Also, Rep. Reingans introduced a resolution. Now people say all the time to me, what's the use of doing a resolution? There's a couple of uses to do resolutions. Resolutions are symbolic at the state level. We are often calling on our federal partners to do certain things, but they do not have teeth in them, if you will, but it is still bearing witness and it is still uplifting the issue, so I think they're important. Her recent resolution was calling on the federal government or Congress to impeach and remove Secretary Noem. I happily co-sponsored that one. There's so many good ones, but one of the ones that I'm very happy had a hearing in the Senate last week is Senate Bill 508. Companion bill is House Bill 4859, so it's Senator Kavanaugh and then Representative Song. And this is regarding the sensitive areas that were referred to earlier. So it's prohibiting ICE from arresting people in hospitals, schools. There's a whole laundry list there. And then also House Bill 4760, introduced by Representative Kofia from the Traverse City area, which is basically known as unmasked ICE, but it also is about law enforcement and ICE saying that they should not be wearing face coverings, especially when you're arresting people, and that you should be able to identify or show a badge or something showing identification. And then the last one, also recently introduced SB 509, my colleague Senator Chang, and that is regarding data privacy because there are concerns about your data being shared with ICE and law enforcement. Thank you.
I wanted to hit on the first question a little bit. We have information about how to identify ICE or different immigration enforcement in the state. It's important for folks to know, I did mention briefly, we have Immigration and Customs Enforcement in our state, but we also have Customs and Border Patrol. They are two different agencies and they do function a bit differently, so it's important to know we have both of those agencies that do immigration enforcement in our state. And like I said, the Know Your Rights page really goes through everything, so please take advantage of that. But I wanted to touch on the legislative advocacy as well. Like was mentioned, there are a package of bills in the Senate, Senate Bills 508, 509, and 510, that we have been strongly advocating for. Just last week there was a Senate committee hearing that was mentioned, and ACLU of Michigan supporters and volunteers submitted over 550 cards of support to that committee to express how much enthusiasm there is and support there is for this bill package. And they still have not taken a vote on it, and so we are trying our best to get folks involved to contact their senators and show them how much public support there is for this bill package. We have a lot of information on it, and there's QR codes in the back. With an action, it would take you like a minute to submit or to put in a call to your senator, and so we would appreciate that.
So I'll touch on the first part. I believe that Kalamazoo has the dream team of activists and organizations that are focused on this right now. So I think we're going to know because we keep us safe. And we already have a ton of people who are watching, creating rapid response networks. So I'm less worried about if we'll know when they get here and more about what our response will be. I'm happy to have a really hard-nosed state rep in our district that is championing these causes at the state level, because we do know that we're going to need some state assistance in things that we can do. I can tell you that I personally am having conversations at the city level about what we can do as a city commission, everything within our power, and we're exploring that. We heard people when they said something about flock cameras. We heard people when they told us about the courts. We heard people when they're asking us about sensitive areas. So those things are being explored for sure. But yeah, I think we will know because our neighbors will notify us.
Awesome. I'm so glad you brought up flock cameras. So a couple questions in here in general. I'm only kidding. A couple questions in here about flock cameras, yes, but just like the increased surveillance state that we are a part of, and biometric data and your facial recognition on your phone. Like, what steps should we be taking to protect ourselves from like this weird tech state that we seem to find ourselves in these days?
So best practices I'm finding amongst activists, if you're going to protest or be a legal observer, take off facial recognition. While you are cuffed, they can point the phone at you, and then they have access to everything inside of your phone. So do a passcode, and they cannot compel you to give them that code. That's really, really important, because our phones, I'm a millennial. This is an appendage of my body. This has everything about me. So that was one of the first things that I did when this stuff started happening, was took my facial recognition off. It takes a second to punch the 6 number code in there. Other things, we know that pieces of the fascist regime own TikTok now. Be careful what you're posting and messaging in your social media apps. The oligarchs own those. As the Gen Z would say, touch some grass. Go talk to people and organize in person. Don't do everything. Don't be hyper online. If somebody can read it across the country, so can they. So be mindful of the things that you're posting. In circles that I'm in, we're starting to create code around the things that we want to mention when we're talking about ICE or immigration or rapid response. We know that they're watching comms. This is a reality. ICE is on the record saying, hey, we're tapping into everything that they'll give us access to see what you're doing. So be hyper vigilant. I'm here to tell you and not gaslight you. Everything, well, not everything, but most of what you hear is true. They're looking through cameras. They have relationships with Ring. So if you have a Ring, maybe consider changing it out to somewhere else. Be thinking about where your cameras are pointing. Can you point them only on your property and don't give visuals to your neighbors that might be vulnerable? These things are, hyper important in this moment.
Yeah, that's great. And some really good recommendations there. I wanted to speak to some policy pieces as well. We've worked with many advocates and municipalities across the state to give guidance about technologies like automatic license plate readers or different surveillance technologies, and have seen really good support from the community to put in guardrails to protect their communities. Recently, just last week, the Michigan House of Representatives introduced two bills, House Bills 5492 and 493 that would regulate the use of automatic license plate readers in the state. They would protect our constitutional rights while balancing public safety and setting common sense limits on the use of their data recognition. One of the things that it would do is kind of narrow the scope of what these license plate readers can be used for. So only being used for specific criminal investigations, specific instances, and not just use as surveillance for everything all the time. We have seen this technology being used across the state, and it currently is not regulated in the state. And so we have been working with legislators in Lansing and have really great bipartisan support on these bills. So also on the sheet on the back, there's a QR code for you to contact your representative to support these two bills as well.
Thank you for mentioning those. I am a co-sponsor of both of those bills, and they were a Republican and a Democrat are the primary sponsors, which is great. I will also piggyback on what Vice Mayor was saying on your phone. You really need to spend some time looking at the settings. There's a lot of apps you don't realize that are kind of like automatic toggled into location sharing. So you want to also look at that. There's really, I think I have 2 on mine after I went through a training for lawmakers about this at one of the conferences I recently attended, and I think I had like 20 that I didn't realize, and I think basically you need it for maps and not too much else. So really take a look at locations sharing in addition to the facial recognition that Vice Mayor had mentioned.
Yeah, there's so many things that can happen with this right here. And I'm not a fan of these, never have been, but I'm also not a Gen Z. But it comes down to this for me. It's a tool, and I look at it like this, and I want you to look at it like this. It's a tool, but you're not the only one that can pick it up and use it. You might think this is mine, and everything here is just between me and my kids. Quit thinking that way. I think the more we can pick this up and go, ooh, we should talk in person, much like grabbing grass, I heard. I like that.
I love that. It's that generation.
Yes. But anyways, I do want people to really look at how you're using the social media, and something that we should try to remember. Every time it says the app is free, it's not. You're the currency. It didn't charge you $2.99. It didn't charge you $10.99 a month or whatever, but they're making $2.99 or $10.99 every time you pick it up and use their little app. So I'm seriously thinking about going back to a flip phone, but that's not what you were here for. All right. Hopefully.
I got a landline. Sorry. Okay, so I mentioned at the beginning that there are people in this room, and thank you all, you've been very respectful so far, keep it up. But there are people in this room and who will be viewing this elsewhere, I think, who need this information, and it's life-saving information for them. And I've kind of piled up a few questions that they would like answers to. So I'm gonna just list them off pretty quick. Should I always carry my green card with me? If I do get detained by ICE, who's my first phone call? Is it 911? And do you have legal recommendations for places I can go if I don't have an attorney, if they're supposed to be my first phone call? Anyone? Lily? Huh?
Okay, I guess I'm going first.
You're first.
So, yeah, we recommend to have documentation on, and if with you, and if you're asked for documentation, to provide it. But if you don't have documentation, we recommend invoking your right to remain silent. Don't ever, lie or provide false information or false documentation. But if you have it, show it. In regards to who to call, we recommend, like I was talking about, making a plan so that you are ready. You're not caught off guard if this does happen. So having and memorizing an immigration lawyer's number, again, I'm going to just keep plugging the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center. They're the only service provider in the state that takes free calls from detention. And so they are doing really, really important work. And their information is on the QR codes in the back, so take that sheet. But yeah, making sure that you have a plan, have the numbers memorized that you need to have memorized, and those should be your first call. Always request your right to speak to an attorney, speak to a lawyer, and have that number ready. Sorry, I'm forgetting the other questions.
I think you nailed it.
Oh, okay. I also want to say I am Gen Z, so no Gen Z hate up here.
I think we're well represented at this panel.
Right.
We love our Gen Z, and I have nothing left to add. You knocked it out of the park.
So in my phone is my attorney's phone number. My wife has my attorney's phone number. I have friends that have my attorney's phone number because I want them to have that. I recommend anybody that is in the eye of the public or out here doing any of this work have those things in place. It makes me sick to my stomach to think that we are at a place in our world where the whole country has to start thinking like this, and that we should all understand that it's not just one population that's the focus. It'll be the next population. And the scary thing is, what I worry about is there's a desensitizing going on. And I think the more that we can recognize that and hold officials accountable to these facts and tell them, we're not going to fall for that. We're not going to start dehumanizing different groups of people. We've seen this done in the past. And I can tell you, law enforcement in this community has worked very hard and very long to become a legitimate, or to make sure you believe that we are a legitimate law enforcement. And the actions we're seeing right now are difficult, very difficult for us as well. There are many chiefs, many sheriffs standing up and saying, this can't keep going on. So again, I ask everybody to make a plan, like everybody's talked about, and have it in your phone or on the wall next to your phone, Mara.
They killed it. I think we can go to the next question.
Sorry, I'm trying to get rid of some of these. Here you go, Silvano. Okay, thank you. So one thing that not as many people want to know about, but I want to know about, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward with it. I think everyone's paying attention to what's happening right now, right? And that's for me. And the opposition is doing a very good job of flooding the zone with a lot of information and a lot of bad things happening all the time. I think everyone here probably feels very inundated and sometimes being kept up all night with what's going on and how to handle it, right? So short term, I think we all kind of know what's going on. But what are the long-term ramifications of, say, a situation like what's happening in Minneapolis, right? We've got elections coming up this year. I would be remiss if I didn't say that. How are these people going to go out and vote? Who's going to be protecting them? What about, kids getting to school for the free meals that are provided there? Are they going to be able to eat? People who don't have laundry in their homes, how are they getting these things done? So can we talk more about 9 months out, what do we expect this to look like for Minneapolis or for anywhere else that this might happen, including here? And, we'll get to the what can we do about it. I got a lot of questions about that.
I think what we are going to see are long-term effects similar to COVID, where people are isolating themselves, they're locking themselves away, the city is not going about business day to day, and that's going to issue a problem. So the way that I've been talking to folks, let's say you are a Republican and you're on the other side of this issue right now. Sensible Republicans that I've talked to care about the economy. I think we all could agree on that. What's your economy look like when your city shut down? What's your economy look like when people aren't showing up for work? What's your economy look like when people are on mass strike? So if you're a Republican right now, these immigration raids are bad for business. And we thought you cared about that, besties. That's one of the big things that we're going to see moving forward, the economic impact. And I hate that I say that first because also it's the human impact, right? Minnesota has gone through a lot over the last decade. And this is yet again another instance of the federal government pushing and trying to bring to heel a state that hasn't voted red in longer than I've been alive. And so it's incredibly important to understand the tactics of the fascist regime, to reserve your energy for the correct fights and know what hill you need to make your readout.
Yeah, something that we say often at the ACLU of Michigan is that we're in this for the long haul. This is generational work, and we are not naive to that. The ACLU has existed for since 1920 through 19 different presidential administrations. We know we're seeing things we haven't before, but we also know that state-sanctioned violence against American citizens is not new. For certain communities, this has been something they've been dealing with. So I think it's important to ground us in that history and in the reality that we need relief, we need to act when we're at these points of tension, but also we need to strategize, we need to organize, we need to plan so that we can better protect ourselves and our communities. There's things that all of us can do. We can't all do everything, but all of us can do something and have something to bring to this work. So, I think what we've seen is building relationships in your local community is so important, getting to know your neighbors, providing mutual aid support, doing school, helping kids get to school. I wanted to talk on that school piece a little bit. At the beginning of last year, we sent a letter to every school district in Michigan about how they could protect their students and prepare for immigration enforcement. We've done Know Your Rights presentations and information to school administrators and have tried to really work to protect kids and that every kid in our state can access their right to an education. And like Mariah said, there's so many reasons that kids and families rely on schools just outside of the educational pieces as well. So making sure kids can get to school, turning to trusted sources of information is also super important. There's a lot of folks doing a lot of good work, but like Mariah said, we've kind of been just like overwhelmed with information and drinking out of a fire hose. So really turning to trusted sources of information is another thing we can all do.
The main question was 9 months out, right? So I think self-care and pacing ourselves is really critical. My husband and I are both physical therapists, and in the first Trump era, and we're seeing this again, we're having patients come to us with inorganic findings. What that means is we do all these tests and measures and we cannot find the source of their pain. There's all over body pains and aches that don't line up with any kind of disease process. And when we start kind of delving into what's going on with them socio-emotionally, it's often high anxiety with what is going on in the world. And so sometimes the prescription is dosing yourself with the news. And sometimes it's not to say that you shouldn't be aware of what's going on, but to watch it 24/7 can have an effect on your physical and mental well-being. So really kind of making sure, and especially again, not to pick on our friends, the phones, but sometimes putting that away and putting that down and doing something else. I don't know how many people had the chance of seeing hearing Wynton Marsalis and his orchestra this past Sunday, but it was rejuvenating for my soul. And I think the arts, I just want to uplift this beautiful space, KNAC, and how the arts have a lot of power to heal us and get us through things. So looking at some of those creative outlets as well. But in addition to making sure that there's never been a more important time. We say this every past 2 years, it seems like, for the last decade, but voting is going to be critical, and making sure that you are registered to vote, that you are dragging your neighbors, family, friends, kicking and screaming because every vote is going to make a difference because democracy is on the line. Again, I am hopeful from Minnesota. Minnesota has had so much happen, and talking to these folks from that city has just been so heartwarming that some of the worst atrocities at the hands of government officials have happened, and they are still optimistic and hopeful and partnering with neighbors and locking arm in arm. So I think we can look to our friends in Minnesota as a model. But I think we just have to kind of keep our eyes on the prize, and those are a couple of areas where I think, and you know, one of our major partners, nonpartisan, the League of Women Voters. You know, the League of Women Voters has been a stalwart for a very long time, and they are also very relevant to this conversation.
So when I'm looking at this, I keep thinking about, for the past 300 years, black, indigent, people of color, they've seen a lot of this. And the difficult part for everybody right now is to get in our heads that psychology that this community I just mentioned has had to deal with all the different things that we're seeing today for all these years. That should give you an idea how everyone else is going to feel 9 months, 10 months down the road. And so I say these things because there's no easy answers. But the answers only come from showing up, voting, showing up, encouraging, showing up for the neighbor, feeding a neighbor sometimes. There's a lot of things we're going to have to do. And it seems like the week to do this, but I remember I have a cute little book that's quotes from Martin Luther King, and one that I keep going back to, and this week especially, is I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear.
All right. If you can't tell, I'm trying to move the conversation away from our fear and into our action, right? Subtle, right? Because that's why we're here, is to turn your fear and your concerns into things that we can grab a hold of and make us feel better and insulate our community from the threats that are posed from every direction. So, given that, this is a great question. I love this question. I love all the questions, but this one especially speaks to me. So I'm just going to read it. What happened, when the George Floyd protests happened, the city reacted with overwhelming force and violence. When the Proud Boys rallied, the city stood by while citizens were injured. What lessons have we learned, as Sheriff Fuller was just alluding to, from the stuff that's already happened, right? Like, this is not the first time we've been concerned about these issues. This is not the first time, law enforcement in our communities have dealt with these issues. So let's take a look back and make sure we've actually learned something. And if we have, what is it? And what are we going to do better this time around?
Engagement, that's what we've learned. You can't stick your head in the sand. As a law enforcement agency, as a county government, as a city government, and Chair Streps is here, by the way, as a county government, we have to work with everybody to make sure that we're not putting our head in the sand. And remember how things went the last time, and try to prepare for that last occurrence not happening now. So earlier it was mentioned by Dawn about the KKK on the front steps of the courthouse. Well, they choose the courthouse for a good reason. There's a Supreme Court case that talks about the steps of a court where you can stand in free speak. So what we did back then, I was a brand new deputy. I'd been here maybe a year or two for the first one, and I was overwhelmed with pride to know that this county, the Sheriff's Office, the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety, all the other police agencies did everything in our power to give them that right, and none of us agreed with them, and to protect our community that was upset and that they were here, as well as protect the people that we did not like what they were saying. And we'll have to keep doing that. We have to remember, we still have to protect everybody's voices, not just the voices we like. And those are the things that I hope we all remember and that we can go forward with, knowing every single time And if we come up with spaces that it's easier for people to have differences of agreement, then I think we should do that. So the more we can do that, I think the better we are.
I would say listening to community and hearing from those affected and what they want to see, making sure that we do our best to have safety plans, and that while it can be done, but there is an art to it of upholding people's civil rights, but then making sure that we maintain safety. Sheriff Fuller mentioned earlier, blocking the street, and so that is where then it becomes a tricky situation. And so I would just say the thing that I asked when I was an elected official during that time is, what is going on the ground? Are people being injured? We can fix broken buildings later, fix broken panes of glass later, but we need to maintain order in terms of public safety and people safety and human safety. And I think that part of all of that is treating each other with respect and having commonality to listen to the other side. And there's a body of research in America that we are self-segregating and dividing into like-minded communities. And what is dangerous about that is that we're not hearing differences of opinions. And I will go back to my first county board chair, Dave Maturin, who basically required us to break bread together after the biggest knockdown, drag 'em out fights. And we would come together, and he would kind of force us into this, into a restaurant and leave the issues at the door, but ask about, what are you doing this weekend? What's your spouse, what work project, or what's going on in your garage? What project do you have? And we do that in the state legislature too, to try to see the humanity in people and hear about the other side, differences of opinion.
This is a really great question. I think one of the big things we learned with the murder of George Floyd is the importance of documentation, which we've talked about already, but it was such a moment because so many of us saw it. It was right in front of us. You couldn't ignore it. And so I think one of the big takeaways is that one thing we can all do is bear witness. We can all bear witness and document. Documenting is not passive. It might not feel like you're doing enough, but just sitting there and recording, staying silent so you can pick up is a really important thing to do, because that's how we know about things. I'm sure there's many names that we don't know because there wasn't evidence of these things. So that's one important lesson that we can learn. And also, we can organize better. I think one thing that, I see often as an organizer, I've been with the ACLU for 3 years, and when we have these big moments of tension, these big moments of folks wanting to do something, folks can feel very energized and just want to do something. But then when that energy kind of fizzles down, then there's less engagement. And so we need to stay in it. And also, I think it's important to know that it's not always the loudest voice in your community that you should listen to. I know there's a lot of folks that want to get involved, but like I said, folks have been doing this work for years. This isn't new to a lot of folks. And so finding those trusted folks, impacted communities who have been doing the work, grassroots organizations who have been organizing in your community are really great partners and folks that you can trust. And we have a lot of information. I know folks were talking about protesting and how to keep you safe. We have protesting rights on our site. We worked with a lot of folks to plan some of the big protests and rallies we've seen. So there's a lot of great work being done there, but that's my time.
The George Floyd issue hits home. I'm a young black man, and things we should have learned is we should have stuck to the points of reforming law enforcement, ending qualified immunity, national use of force standard, a civilian oversight with teeth, and national misconduct registry. What we didn't learn is that fascism has been being practiced on black and brown bodies since the inception of this country. And unfortunately, what we are seeing right now is what they think is the perfection of that craft. And so what we need to learn are from times like when we defeated the Confederates, when we passed civil rights, when we handled Watergate, and when we drove out election deniers in this country. This is not the first time we have been in perilous times. It won't be the last. But it has always been a group of people that are dedicated to democracy and the thought of empathy in this country that has fought for the rights of everyone. Lastly, what we've learned is that 100 people can watch the same video and we get 100 different perspectives. So one of the biggest things that I've repeated in rooms is know the truth and repeat it. It is incumbent on us to know the truth and repeat it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, before I move on, I'm going to take an opportunity here because there's a lot of questions that have not been asked yet. And I can't keep you all here all night. So before I move our panelists to their closing statements for the evening, I want to just take a few moments and talk about the questions that I've set aside, which are, how do we organize? What do we do next? What can we do next? Where are we going? There's a fat stack of those questions in here, right? And we've gotten some good answers about next steps, but I would really encourage you all to take a minute and fill out this form, okay? This event is brought to you this evening by the Do Something Committee, and this is our Do Something for the evening. This is you signing up to help your neighbors, help your community in the event that ICE comes to Kalamazoo County, okay? And you can indicate on here where you live, neighborhood, what neighborhood you live in, what you're prepared to do, how you're prepared to help. And this will be saved, not used, not sold, none of that. But this will be saved in the event that we need to respond in a rapid way, okay? So these are around. There's also QR codes for these all over the place. Please take a minute and fill this out. Also regarding QR codes, there's the ACLU ones also all over the place with probably everything you need to know about next steps. So that's what that information will be used for, is organizing around and protecting our vulnerable community members. I also would like to take a minute and just thank the KNAC team, the Kalamazoo Nonprofit Advocacy Coalition, whose space this is, for allowing us to be here. This is a ton of work. The Do Something Committee, KNAC, put in, you can't believe how many text messages. So especially Dan and Elise, the folks at Crawl Space Comedy Theater, thank you for organizing this. We expected to be downstairs and had no clue that all of you were going to show up. So thank you. You've been really, really fabulous, and I've been honored to be up here with you all this evening. So if you wouldn't mind, I think there's a way to contribute because this space, costs someone some money. I'm not sure who. But please consider making a donation to the Do Something Committee for the venue this evening, if you don't mind. And with that, I think that's my list. I'd like to turn it back to our panel for just some closing statements, 2 minutes, wrap us up. What's the thing you want us to take away this evening?
I think we'll let Drew walk us out. What I want to say tonight is one other quote, and this is the last quote, but it's from Voltaire. It is dangerous to be right in the matters where established men are wrong. Mm-hmm. That's real. And so I say those things to you to make sure that you understand that there are things we can do. We stay connected. We engage with more than just your neighbor. Talk to other people. I find throughout my entire life that the more I just stop and start talking to somebody, the more I feel connected to the rest of the world. And so I talk to strangers all the time, and so I encourage you to do that. Doesn't mean you have to get into an argument with anybody, but the more we just feel connected, the better it is. And as a nation, I know we've been here before. It doesn't like really feel like it right now. It feels like this has never happened, but it's never happened to me. It's never happened to you, but this has happened. And so it's important that we remember that this has happened, and we do everything we can to shine a light on the darkness. You shine a light on what you don't like because it's wrong. You shine a light where you want people to see what's going on so nobody can go, that didn't happen. Well, yes, it did. I saw it. I read about it. I know that happened. So again, thank you to all of you brave souls for being here tonight. And I thank my panel here as well for being here tonight.
I too want to give a shout out to Dan and his crew, so if we could have a round of applause for all the volunteers who helped put this on. And to think the special building almost got bulldozed. Thank you so much to Mariah and to the panelists and Dawn and everyone for organizing. I am encouraged. When we come out together, I think what Vice Mayor touched on earlier is we need to prevent the isolation, and we're all in this together. So thank you for coming out tonight. Please share what you learned with a neighbor that couldn't come tonight. Knowing our civil rights and making sure that we're familiar with this very dusty but relevant book, the Constitution. It's really important to know our rights and to share them, but to also help protect people that need help and couldn't be here. Engagement is so critical. So making sure that you know who your lawmakers are, know who your local officials are, reaching out to them. We have had an unprecedented uptick in emails and phone calls to our office in Lansing about ICE, so thank you for reaching out. It encourages me. And I also want to touch on, oftentimes people think, oh, does my voice matter? Does my email really get read? Every lawmaker in the state has staff that compile the number of emails and phone calls on any given topic. And my staff gives me a report. We just got 20 emails about ICE. And that helps give me what my priorities are and what your priorities are. And I can mesh what I'm working on legislatively with what you are engaging with us. So thank you for your emails and phone calls. Keep them up. And the last thing I'll say is that you all give us hope. There is light in the darkness, and thank you for bearing witness and being here and part of us tonight.
That was perfect.
Yeah, I just want to thank you all again so much for inviting me to be here. I feel very honored, especially you have so many folks from the community here, and as an outsider, I don't take that lightly, so I really appreciate it. And I have the immense privilege and pleasure of working with people across Southwest Michigan every day as my job, and these are the moments that I treasure. So thank you again. As we said, the reality is people's rights are violated every day, and when one person's rights are threatened, all of our rights are threatened. And so we need to act, we need to be prepared, make plans, know your rights, be in community with one another. Instead of policies that stoke fear and divide our communities, our elected officials should be protecting our entire communities. And that includes our immigrant neighbors and loved ones. So we have been working with communities on every level of government, from the most local to the federal level. I know there's so much happening up here, and we feel angry, want to do something, but so much of it starts here at the local level. There are things we can do to work with our lawmakers to protect ourselves and our communities. We've talked about a lot of those things tonight, and just know that the ACLU of Michigan is here for you. our team is working tirelessly, using every tool that we have to protect Michiganders and folks in our state. So I would be happy to connect with you. There's resources back there. Would love to connect with you and get you involved in our work and keep us going. So thank you.
Hey, y'all. So this is not about being for or against immigration. This is about whether government power has limits. And whether those limits still matter when the people affected have the least political power. When any agency ignores warrants, bypasses due process, or intimidates communities, that is not enforcement. That is erosion. And if ICE rears its head in this community, the expectation is that we hold the line. Like Minnesota, we hold the line. Like Minnesota, we do not let them kidnap our neighbors. Most importantly, it's important that our neighbors, all of them, whether they look like us, sound like us, etc., know that we have an unyielding love for this community. And that's not just the streets or the buildings or the restaurants. It is the people that make up the lifeblood of the city of Kalamazoo in this county. And loving means showing it out loud. And I can tell you, as I started this panel, I am fluent in the language of appreciation. And I appreciate this community. And I'll be damned if I let anyone come kidnap anyone in my community. Thank you.
All right, you guys don't have to wait for me. Thank you. Get home safe. Thank you again to our panelists, and go out there and do something.
Fuck Donald Trump. Fuck Donald Trump. Yeah, nigga, fuck Donald Trump.